Hi, Shriti. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Sushil.
To set the stage for the listeners of this conversation, I would like to introduce Shriti. Shriti is a civil engineer who has founded the company called Strawcture Eco, which turns crop waste such as straws from rice, wheat, such crops into boards that can be used for interior design application, such as acoustic panels, made sana and flooring, and drywalls and a couple of other things. And the story of Preeti is particularly interesting because right from, choosing her bachelor's to choosing her master's to doing a 1 year of village life, living a village life in India, it has been a story of her following her heart and choosing everything very intentionally. And I would let Shriti tell the story herself. So, to begin with, tell me about the time when you first confronted the problem that you're working on and what did you do next?
Thank you for that. I think the first time I witnessed the problem in person and not just, reading about it in news or listening about it during winters is in 2016. This is end of the year, December, post harvest of the second season of harvesting that we have in India. And then the second time I witnessed it in 2017, right after around the period of March and April, which is the holy season. Like in India, agriculture festivals is very tight, the way the calendars are. So these were the two times that I witnessed the problem, which is I saw that farmers would clear off the lands and they would then burn it, which is they burn the agriculture stock that is left on the ground, which is essentially biomass, and clear off the patch to make it ready for the next crop that they have to sow. So essentially, what is called stubble burning is what I witnessed twice in Madhya Pradesh in that period when I was living in the village with the community and doing my rural fellowship. And sometimes I think the best thing to do when you witness something is to just sit with it, which means that I did not immediately jump to think, oh, how can I solve this? Or what is the solution for it? Why are not people already figuring it out? I actually spend the good part of the rest of the fellowship only understanding the problem deeper, which is first understanding from farmers why are they doing it, seeing a consistent pattern to the responses, whether it was small or medium scale of farmers. Then also understanding that the problem also was across different crops, which means that while it was wheat and soya in MP, it is paddy up north, it is coconut down south, or bagasse in West India, even some other fibers, that fiber-based crops that have grown in east part of the country. So realizing that it is not limited to one crop or one kind of pattern of agriculture, that if we can convince farmers to grow something else, they will stop burning it. And thirdly, understanding that if there was an ideal situation created where they stop burning it, let's say for a minute, we think about it theoretically, what will they do with it if they're not burning it? Which makes you understand that the problem is deeper beyond that moment of burning. But if it's if you do not do it, then it is volume, it is something that takes a lot of space. And if you are a farmer who has a house, you do not have a storage space, you immediately cut crop and you sell it in the mandi anyways, because you don't even have the capacity to wait that out. Where will you have space in your house to then keep a byproduct, which is not going to even give you the same price that the main real crop does? So the problem was at different levels. So understanding them, sitting with that, even talking to farmers in other states, because in the fellowship, we were multiple fellows spread across the country in different parts, and realizing that they are engaging with community and facing the same problem. So it was more just sitting with the problem, and it was only later to the end part of the fellowship, which was in October of 2017, is when I started devoting my time to understand that if and how we can address to some degree the problem, and if there are people who are already thinking of solutions to this.
And then did you come across already anything being done about the problem?
So, of course, there were things done at different levels and in different industries with the biomass. There were things done with biomass in terms of energy, converting into biofuel or converting them into pellets, biochar. All of that was being done now or then as well. The one that, of course, had my more interest and fascination was materials because of my background in construction. So I gravitated more towards reading about all kind of biomaterials that are using biomass anywhere ranging from 10% to up to 90 or at times 100, and what kind of products are they finally making, and what could be the potential viability of doing that in India with the context of Indian biomass and also the context of Indian weather and buildings that we have. So yes, I came across real companies that were doing something, and one of them was based out of Europe and Eastern Europe, the one I connected with and learned from. And that's how the journey of Strawcture started.
And I'm curious about your mindset. So, when you first witnessed the problem, you mentioned that you sat with it for a while, you connected with a few other fellows across India, and they were connecting with the community. You were also immersing yourself at that point within the community. So, I wanted to understand, were you already thinking about starting a company, or was it like, I want to solve the problem?
Not honestly, I was not thinking about starting a company at all. I was really thinking about the problem from a very first principle approach. And I always like to believe that there's always more value into execution than ideas, which means that if, like, the fact that biomass is being burnt is universal, the fact that there are certain technologies that can utilize biomass is also proven. So then why some or majority of them have not scaled, and the few that have scaled, it's learning more from the challenges and problems before you yourself set out to do something. There's always value to adding. This is what you learn in the impact space, is that often problems are too big for one person, one founder, one organization. And often what makes the maximum difference is to make something more efficient in the existing solution than trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to do something from scratch. So that is how I was looking at the problem more than thinking about starting a company. I think that took another easily one full year. And it was only in mid of 2018 that I started the company. So it was 2 years after the fellowship started that I started the company.
Right. And you mentioned that you connected with somebody in Eastern Europe to understand how they were leveraging the crop waste. How did that connecting with them and communicating with them and learning about that process, that product, how did that process go?
I mean, that process, in at core of it, there was a lot of serendipity and like-minded people with good heart who wanted to share. I think that was actually the basis of it more than anything technical. In the village, while I was there, as I said, I was spending more time on the problem, but also parallelly trying to look up what solutions could be there. Is when I came across the company. I literally, like a young person in their 20s would do, you look them up on the internet, you write to them. I reached out on LinkedIn and sent out a cold email, to which I got a response after a month. And they said that yes, they are working with wheat straw in Eastern Europe, and it's again a family thing. The brother, the father have been trying to do this. They themselves, with their own in-house efforts and technology, have tried to create an in-house way of processing wheat straw and buying it from farmers within their own country, and said that, yeah, if you want to learn more, we can share. And it's not a patented technology, and we are actually open to people wanting to know more, because that's how they came to know about the technology from another organization that was doing this in the UK before them. So that was very kind of them. And I said that I would really like to learn, and actually, maybe if possible, see if I could come down after my fellowship gets over. So after end of November of 2017, I decided to, in early 2018, go there, spend some time with them, see their factory, meet the customers that they were serving, see the houses that they had built over a period of 10, 15 years that were still standing, using straw-based panels in them for different use cases. And yeah, just learning a lot through them and shadowing them over a period of few weeks. And that really gave me a lot of confidence. So, I mean, in a way, someone can say that you were learning from someone who you can see as a competitor. But I think I was learning from someone who, as I said, had already made some progress. And instead of reinventing the wheel, it was learning what they had done right and then seeing what we might have to do different, considering the context of India as a country, the market that we have. But yes, that's how I learned. And that gave me the real confidence to actually go back to India and actually start a company, and believe that if someone can do this in one part of the world with the similar material, I'm sure we could create something viable for the Indian market, where the problem is much bigger. They don't burn stuff, wheat or any kind of straw in Europe. That was long banned in the US and Europe. but they at least figured out a way to use it and create a value added product. So when there is already a bigger problem of burning, the need should align to the demand of creating a value added product.
Makes sense. It's amazing how they learned it from somebody in the UK, you learned it from them, and probably, I don't know, 20 years down the line, somebody from a different country might come to you and be like, "Can you show me how you are
I
doing
mean,
this?"
we would be happy for someone to come tomorrow or in 2 years to, know, because I say this because the openness that they had, if they did not had that, I would have not have had the confidence to take the first step. And while definitely we believe in IP and trademarks and patents, at the same time, I'm fully aligned as they were that the problem is big, the resource is universal, and each country needs to, at the end of the day, tweak the product to their use case. So we would any day, be very happy to show someone else how we are doing it, to maybe a person in a country which is closer to how we are in a weather and construction, probably in Southeast Asia. We would always be open to share.
Very nice. Love that attitude. So, coming back to your story, you were there, you learned, you shadowed them, you decided to come back to India and replicate a similar process. How was that journey like? Did you already have an idea of what kind of people, machines are you looking for? Or did you also have to start that from ground up?
So I definitely had an idea of what kind of machine we would need because of looking and understanding of their processes. I definitely knew that the back end, the way they handle it there in Europe is not going to be the same in India. The supply chain is completely different, or to be honest, the supply chain was non-existent and it has only grown from there, not just for us, but for so many other biomass use cases. So a non-existent value chain has gone from being broken to now being organized, which is very different from Europe, where 10 farmers can give you as much of agriculture residue that 200 would from the same radius. So, yes, we knew that the backend we have to figure out our own way of establishing the backend, but the processing is something we definitely learned from them. And again, tying back to that logic that do we need to do everything from scratch? No, we try to see that trying to build on the, how do you say it, like the strengths that India does have or the gaps as well. That, in India, there are a lot of MSMEs, there are a lot of small scale factories, and a lot of time, while they all are existing, they're not all running at the best utilization capacity. And can you find a way to work with an existing partner and create a product where then you are creating an asset like model, and at the same time, the way to scale it would be decentralized, which is completely opposite to how they were doing it, which was everything end to end. So while we learned from them about the product, but the way we went about building the model was completely the opposite, which is being honest to where you are building it, which is the Indian market. So we went ahead with having a decentralized outsource model of building it with partners, again, building partners long term in terms of relationship that we're working with still and will continue to, and tweaking the products more in terms of the density, the load bearing capacity, the compliances that the Indian building codes have versus the European building codes require. We might require more adhesion to humidity because the relative humidity can be far more in certain parts of India versus it is there in the Europe. There, they're used to lightweight structures. In India, our sense of safety only comes when something has load or mass in it. There's a very common thing we do as Indians is that when we enter a house, we always knock on the wall. I've not seen anyone else do that. We knock, which is that we try to get a sense of if the building is solid or not from the sound it makes, which is again saying, is it solid or is it hollow? While most drywall construction in the rest of the world will make sort of a hollow sound because they are low dry construction, they're not made with brick or concrete slabs. But in India, when you hear that sound, you feel that, oh, maybe the structure is not sturdy. So the way the behavior or the perception of the material will be is also very different. So yes, that was all kind of insights that I had from the fellowship, from my background in construction, the way people in the building material sector behave, that helped in creating a product that works for the Indian market. And that again was done in collaboration with the manufacturer. It was done in collaboration with labs in India and trying to create a prototype and then trying to create a full scale product out of it in the factory, and then establishing a way to do that consistently day in, day out. So it was anywhere around a 6 to 9 month, I think, exercise that went into creating our panel, which is today the first flagship product that we have, which is an 8x4 panel that uses 96% straw, and is compressed at a density which is far more than your traditional fiber boards and closer to your plywoods, which are seen as the most durable engineered material in the Indian market. So yes, that was a journey that went anywhere, as I said, from early 2018 of meeting them to almost end of the year. We finally had our ready product at the start of 2019 that could be used or sold to make something with it.
Okay. And during this whole time, what was the reaction of people, including your family, friends, but also the manufacturers who you would partner with, telling
Uh,
them that I'm making something out of waste of wheat straws or whatever crop straws? How is that like?
Surprisingly, you actually gets, I don't say proven wrong, but you actually get surprised in a positive way when you understand that it's the people who are more away from the problem are the ones that thinks that things are too unique or rocket science. But when you're actually talking at the ground level to a farmer, when you're actually talking to a manufacturer who's day in day night pressing wood into creating plywood, you will actually realize that a lot of them said to us that, yeah, what you're saying makes sense. If we can press wood fiber, we can press straw. There would be a glue. Maybe that glue can change if you wanted to. If there is a better glue, you can tell us and we can try that. But theoretically, we also don't see why this can't be done. I think the reason that we heard a lot is that it was not at the production level that they said that this can't be done. It's like that no one had tried till then, maybe because of the market, the trend, the demand. So we realized in that exercise of creating the product, we realized that what we need to do more as a company, or where our effort needs to be, is to actually create the category. What is missing is the category or the demand. The backend is there, the supply chain is there, partners are there who know this can be done, who in their own very interesting vernacular ways have actually tried doing it themselves. And I've been fortunate to meet these people who have done that themselves just because they were curious. But nobody tried to build for long term because they were like, there's no insight from the market that there's a need for this. So we realized that, oh, you have to actually create that category, because if you just tell a manufacturer to make something, why would they do it if no one is going to buy it? So we had to come in and say that, you know what, I'm asking you to build the product, but parallelly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the demand. So I'm going to do the front end. And I know that you're actually far more capable of building the back end because you're already in that space before me doing that for decades with just another fiber. But a lot that goes into the processing is very similar. So as a company, that's why we realize that where a USP or a moat will lie is to constantly figuring out how to build demand, how to create those use cases that will make a straw-based panel be purchased over a wood-based or any other fiber-based panel. And if there is that demand, there will be a product to supply for it.
Got it. And what about your friends and family?
I've been lucky. I've been privileged with my family in terms of being extremely supportive. In terms of, in the sense, not supportive in terms of the technical background. Nobody in my family has ever in the past been in the space of real estate or building materials. They are doctors, lawyers, ISPCS at one end, and they're into regular trading business on the other side of the family. But they were extremely supportive emotionally and letting me do what I wanted to do. Take my time in terms of the 2 years of the fellowship and then the year after. And then after that, in starting the company, my father was the first person who told me that if you're spending too much time doing it, why don't you go ahead and day one establish a private limited company and give this a structure and do this full time, and actually establishing a company will make you more accountable and more sincere towards figuring this out than not, and not treat this maybe as a project certain days. So I think that way they were extremely supportive instead of actually telling me, why are you doing this, or being risk averse, which at times could be Indian psyche. So I've been quite supportive, quite help privileged that way to have supportive parents. With friends, I definitely did not had a lot of, I would say, friends who were in businesses until I started this. It is only in the journey after I started Strawcture that based on the programs, the incubators, the investors, the fellowships that I've done, that I've now built a nice community of friends who are also entrepreneurs, a lot of them in the social impact space in India, outside India. But that was not the case before. So I think for a lot of my friends till then, I was just doing something different. And from a distance, they were being supportive, but they didn't also really knew how to hands-on support me. But at a emotional level, they were like, yeah, if you want to figure it out,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
And I think you were doing all of this by yourself for a few years, right? So
Yes.
how was the whole process of figuring out these legalities, figuring out all the licenses, certifications, and everything? How did you do all those things?
So I think if I was not running structure, what I would have been honestly would be a student. I am someone who's very academic in their approach of doing things. I always thought I would do an MTech and I would further do a PhD and I'll be a professor and I will teach. By which, what I mean is that I'm someone who really believes, who really sees value in just digging deeper and finding solutions. So whenever I had to find any of this, so I think from the start of the fellowship till 2020, the first 2 years, it was pretty much me, and in between, I had two carpenters supporting me, but I did not had any one who I had hired or who had joined me as a founder or a co-founder. So the first 3 years of having a product ready, it was just me with myself constantly finding answers. So I had a very like a research like approach to solving problems. So it's like, okay, compliances, I don't know what they are. I'm gonna sit for a week and just figure out anything and everything that I have to. What are the labs that do material research? I'm just gonna find them, list them, and start cold calling them, and hopefully one will respond back, and then I'll go see them. So it was just like that kind of mindset that I have and I still do, is that if you don't know something, you just get down, you do it, and while you're at it, is you figure it out. So I've never been an expert at anything in my life, but as a generalist, I just know how to, in a very methodical way, be at something till I find the solution. So that's how the whole exercise of, finding the partners, going to Europe, figuring out the product, getting it compliant happened. Of course, there was some capital involved. So some of my own savings went into it. And when we started the company in 2018, we put together a paid up capital of 10 lakhs, which was again my family, a lot of women, actually not all, not a lot, every shareholder that I had when I started the structure as a company were women in my family. So from my mother, my sister, to my cousin, to my aunts, I actually took a 50,000 paid up capital from 10 of them, which put together 10 of them putting 50,000. And then the rest was me, my mother, and my sister, is how we had the 10 lakh to start the company. They were the starting shareholders in the company and still are. So yeah, it was how that all started until we had our first, like an outsider external investor coming, which was only in 2022.
Wow. So in the beginning, it's really like your family came together to support you financially, but also in giving you advice, like set up your company and do it in a more structured way. I was always going to say structured way. Okay, so in 2022, you received your first funding. And why did you decide to go for more funding? Was it you had to increase the production capacity?
I have always believed since I started structure that the way I look at capital is that, or at least our approach at structure is that we will only raise money, we will only take someone else's money to fuel something, which should either be growth or it should be expanding a product or figuring out a new product in our roadmap. We would not use capital to figure out product fit because we are in a space which is very traditional. We are in construction, we are in building materials, talking to more architects and builders in the initial period, only getting a no. We realize that it is not that if I just create a cheaper product by discounting it because we have capital to do that is going to make this product sell. People make emotional decisions when they interior their house. People make a very important financial decision when they are building a corporate office or a school or a hotel. So the only thing that will make them change their behavior and use a different product is going to be the product itself, which means that if the product can sell on its merit, is something that can only be proven by the product and not capital. And once that is done by the product and you have seen that product fit, then you take capital and you try to build other things that is needed around the product. Like, oh, do you need a better sales team or a bigger sales team? Do you need to do branding? Do you need to do marketing? But just spending on marketing and branding will not make this product sell. The product has to sell because the product actually does better than what other products already doing in the market. So in 2022, the reason that we took funding was that by then we had spent a year in selling the product. We had done a revenue of 1 CR the first year. We had done pilots with different CSR and non-CSR entities where the product had been used, had been out there in different weather situations. And we had the confidence that, okay, at least the product has grown from being at a lab to a real life situation where now, if we have capital, we can actually go and build a team to start selling this and reaching out to more people and actually build a funnel or build a demand, so to say. But the first year of pilots were all a lot of cold calls, a lot of connections, relationships, partnerships that helped us do things. It was not that we had the money and we were present in a trade fair or we were spending on any social media. There was zero marketing, zero spend to do the first year of sales. It was only just asking people to give us a real opportunity to use this product in their structure and show that this could deliver.
So you had your first product in end of 2019, right?
So the product, as I said, was ready by the end of 2018. So 2019 and 2020, these were 2 years where we spent a lot of time in selling it to different CSR organizations. So there were no commercial clients we had. So the reason that we started doing the process of fundraising in 2021 was because we felt that, okay, we would need some capital to actually tap into the mainstream audience in selling this. But then the exercise of raising went longer because of COVID. I did not meet any of my founder investors in person. Everything was done virtually. And also it was a long drawn process and the money only kicked into our account by end of 2021, January 2022. But that was the reason why we decided to raise in 2021 was only because we had seen traction in 2020 of the product being sold on the merit of what it delivers.
Right. I'm curious, how does it fit in the CSR ball game? What is that angle like for structure?
So what we realized talking to a lot of CSR foundations is that a lot of funding, like a lot of CSR funding, if you look at it, besides going into healthcare and education, and even for that matter in healthcare and education, goes into improving the infrastructure of anything that then becomes the foundation to deliver service. So if you're saying that, okay, we need to spend on education as a CSR, we need more students to go to school. Often what you realize, unfortunately, is that when you go on ground, what is missing first is the school or the classroom itself. So you need the classroom and then you need a quality teacher and then you need the right curriculum. And then you need an on-ground organization to tie everything together and execute it. So a lot of time what is missing at the backbone is the infrastructure itself, where all of that services will be deployed that you want to give your funding for. So that's where we realized that, okay, can we pitch to the CSR saying that if your money is going into building that school furniture or building that classroom, building that Anganwadi, primary healthcare center, where there actually the vaccines need a fridge and the fridge needs a healthcare center to be sitting in. So can we actually go and say that we can actually support building those basic public infrastructures in a better way with a sustainable material without increasing really a lot of the cost or the budget that you have put together for it. And we realized that there was traction, there was interest to do that because they're already spending all of that money with an intent for impact, which is more societal. But then if there could be an environmental impact added to it, it's an add-on. So that's how we could collaborate with foundations at the start, and it made a better fit as them as early adopters than a mainstream architect or a builder for whom it would be very financial to look at, where they're going to just look at their capex and opex and not really is there a social or environmental impact to how I'm building.
Yeah. So end of 2022, you had the funding, and today we are speaking in October or September 2025. this journey of almost 3 years, full 3 years now, how has that gone for you in terms of building the demand that you set out with that intention?
So, I mean, if you put it on a graph, it is not an upward only growing graph, which means that after we raised, you do the lot of things that a lot of founders would do when you raise capital is you spend on certain things, which is you will spend on building processes, you'll spend on building a sales team, you'll spend on building some visibility and expect returns in terms of revenue, which happened for us too. So from the year that we raised, we grew 2 years. And then we realized that while we were growing, which again, I think is a learning that you get a lot of time as a first time founder, is that you have to make a choice if you want to make a choice that a lot of that growth is essentially happening inorganic, right? Because you're using capital to build that growth. And we took a small pause and then we took a total pause to decide that the way that we were growing for those 2 years after the fundraise is a lot of that growth sustainable, which by which I mean that is this something that can continue happening if for some reason tomorrow capital is not there? And if that is the case, can we look at pivoting the model that we have? By which I mean, can we pivot the way we sell and who we sell to? So that with or without the capital, that growth can actually then be sustainable, might not be as exponential with capital versus without, but it's definitely in the right direction. And so after 2 years of growing 100% and 200% year on year, we actually went down and did 25% of revenue of what we had done in 2023.
Wow, how did that feel like?
I mean, we knew it will happen. We knew we will have a dip. What that dip would look like was like an outcome. So we were not really that worried, to be very honest, about what the dip would be. I had communicated it to my investors as well in good faith that there will be a dip because we are completely pivoting a model. We realize that we cannot scale this business sustainably if we are offering product and service. We do not think we can scale this business with one product, which means that we have to actually spend time in not selling, but actually building a product roadmap, which need different set of team, not the one that we have currently. And when we pivot to only a product company, that sales team also has to look different. So in that year, while we had a dip, we also almost had an entire change of the, so except one person that was there in the team, then no one else is still in the team. So the entire team changed. So it was hiring new people while you were having a revenue dip and to convince them, which is in hindsight, if you think about it, the only people who would join you is the people who would really believe in what you're doing. So all of them that I hired are still there because you know that they're joining you for something a lot more fundamental because you clearly don't have that fancy growth to show that, hey, we're just going to raise a seed round in next 9 months. So join this growing ship. That was not the pitch for sure. So yes, I mean, it was a great year for a lot of right reasons. It was also a hard year in terms of numbers, but I think in hindsight, all the learnings that we had, we have put them to use, and most of them have been proven right for us. And so from then to now, last year, where we then did double of what we did that year when we went down, and this year we would do 3 times of that. We know that at least now, like our fundamentals and our basics are very clear how to grow. So we don't have to pivot that. And we're not going to need capital to figure that out. So when we raise again, we're only going to, as I said, we're going to now raise to multiply on those efforts. It's not going to be like, hey, I need to still figure out my product fit, my market fit, what my pitch is to actually sell this, what my price. We always talk about product fit, but I think with industries that we are in, you have to actually find the price fit because sometimes you can sell just because the price makes sense. Anyway, in India, we are not that conscious a lot of times with a lot of certain categories about the product quality as much as the main deciding factor is price. A 1 rupee lesser price will make you lose your loyalty and start buying something else. So actually understanding if you have the right price fit or not is far more important, which sometimes you don't do because you have the capital. So you can discount, which means that you actually do not know that what is the right price someone will pay for it if they have to, because they're actually not paying the right price for the product. So yeah, we did all of those hard learnings. And so today we have the very right understanding of our price fit in India with the audience, the price fit that we have for the Europe market as well, and also knowing that is there more that we can ask for, which will only happen if we offer more in the product. But now we have the team that can keep delivering on the products in terms of creating new product use cases. We can very soon, in a period of 30, 60 days, create a new grade of product if required, if there is an audience for it in terms of compliances, in terms of a new country or an entire new category. So yes, building a lot of those muscles that are not very tangible or a very strong selling point, because they're not just hard top line numbers, but they are the, I think, the right backbone that you need to then actually just focus on that top line when you
Yeah,
set out for
I,
it.
I think you really focused on setting that foundation on which you can scale this whole enterprise up,
Right.
right? And I think that's a very solid approach and also a long-lasting approach that will
Yeah.
go a long way, reaping fruits for you. In this process of establishing such a scalable structure, understanding how the business works, understanding the right pricing and everything, you coming from an engineering background,
Mhm.
did you have a business support from someone, from maybe your co-founder, or was it still you figuring out in a
Um,
research approach?
it was still figuring me out. I have a co-founder now, Shreyansh, who's actually my brother. But what he looks after in the business is everything but sales, which means the entire accounts, finance, and operations is something he heads because his background is in supply chain and logistics. So, no, I think a lot of my learning has really been on ground. I had studied, as I said, when I was in the US, I was doing my MTech in construction management. I did take a course in entrepreneurship. But then, as the academic way I look at things, when the time came, I could use all of those theoretical concepts and test them out in real life. My own business became that case study for all of those theories. And I think the biggest learning tool to a founder can be no, and it could be nothing else but your own customer, and better the people who actually do not become your customer, which is the one who reject you or say no to buying, right? Because who's going to tell you what is the wrong price, but the one who's not buying at the price you're offering, right? So I think so much of that is just day in, day out meeting architects. I remember the first year we started looking at the mainstream audience. We just in the month of September before the Diwali season, when we know that a lot of time architects might give you time to meet, we created 100 sample kits and we just went out and met 100 architects in a period of 40 days in NCR. But when you meet 100 people, which means on an average you're meeting 2 to 3 architects in a day, and out of meeting those 100 architects, I think probably two of them ended up becoming our customers, but those 98 gave you that data point or gave you that insight to know that, oh, maybe my pricing is not right, or my pitch is not right, or this is the way I'm talking about the product that is exciting them. But when I'm talking about these features, they don't really care about those features. So they really care about 2, 3 basic things. Or actually just keeping the sample in front of them and having a long pause and letting them pick up the sample and start talking before you talk, and speaking less and hearing more, and understanding that, oh, it's better to let them tell you how to perceive the product because they are the ones who have to buy it. I can have a great perception about my product that it's the most good looking. But at the end of the day, an architect who has an aesthetic sensibility has to find that appealing aesthetically. So if they are not finding it aesthetically appealing, for all I care how good looking it is, it makes no value. So it's a lot like, a lot of time people say that your customer is your source of insight, but you really have to put that to practice as well. So even now today, when we create new use cases for a product, we every time go back and try to do pilot with our existing customer who's already buying an SKU. Because if they are already buying, they can, with the sense of relationship established, give you an insight into, oh, do the market actually need this new SKU or not? So
Hmm,
your testing bed becomes your existing customer, then trying to find a
right.
new customer for it.
Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. And from your story, I understand that you are also innovating at the same time. As in, you said that if there is a new demand of a certain kind, then you are also open to pursuing that opportunity. Is there a balance that you strike in doing something new versus continuing what has worked?
No, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, So I think again there that balance comes because of the way the team is. So besides Shansh, we have Manu in my team. So he is someone who's hardwired to only think about new things. He's like that nerd who would always think about innovation. He'll look at a new fiber and next day he'll have 5 new products he can think of. And then my job as the founder who's looking at the business, the top line and the bottom line is to find that balance and see that, okay, how much capital can we allocate in doing that R&D and product development and keep supporting that. So constantly but as a company, the culture is that even if the market is not asking for it, if we want to not just be the first, but actually be the pioneer in creating new building materials, you really have to invest your time and resource in R&D. While we have only raised 1 round of equity, we have as a company raised equal amount of money in grants and competitions. And a good percentage of that, if not 100, easily 50 to 60% have that gone into R&D and product development. So it is that intent and that DNA that yes, the market might not need it today, but we need to spend that time and resource into creating a product that we do believe eventually there will be a need. So Manu is the one who then spends his time, and my job is to get him that resource. So yes, we find that balance. Sometimes I have to unfortunately tell him that I don't think we have the bandwidth to work on this product use case, but we will get to it when we have the resource and the bandwidth, and we keep finding that balance. But yes, as a company, I always say that the way we have structured it, it is operations, it is sales, but it is equally product development. We are not a company that's just looking to, it's like, oh, we have that one panel figured out. Because if that would have been the case, we would have not had the dip. We would have just continued running with that one product while we were bleeding on our margins to just keep building that growth. That is not how we are looking to build this.
Now I'm very curious to see a couple of SKUs if you have them around.
Unfortunately, don't have them around in my hand. But what I can do is I can definitely share with you, and you can add that. I can share with you pictures of what we've
Yeah,
been
that would be great.
building upon. Yes,
Nice.
certainly.
So looking at future of structure, where do you see yourself and the company in 10 years?
Whenever I think about it, there's this image that comes into my mind, which works both ways from innovation point of view and growth perspective as well, which is this. So there was this very interesting research paper that I read in 2017 when I was in the fellowship. It was a research paper that was called BioLoop, where by the end of that paper, there is this map, there's this global world map where every country has an image of a crop on it. And the idea is to show that there is almost at least one, if not more, sources of biomass available in almost every part of the world that we live in on this planet, where something can be converted into an alternative material, a building material. And the vision of that paper was to also say that at the end of the day, there is an opportunity to convert, if not 100%, 60% of everything that we are using today as a building material into a bio-based source of where it is coming from. And that has always been very inspiring to me. Even today, I still go back to that paper. So the idea for me in next 3 to 5 years is to see Strawcture contributing to that map, which is from an innovation point of view, find other biomass sources, and then at the same time, find other partners in different part of the world, not just to sell our product, but to be manufacturers and partners in doing this. So I think as a company in next to 3 to 5 years, I think Strawcture can really become a global player in creating bio-based building materials as a proven global category, not just a category in India, like the way we had to build, or we are still building that category in India. I think even at the global level, that category has to be built. And I think we can really play a very mature role in that, both from an innovation point of view, in giving that initial insight or the R&D that we have already done. And then with our decentralized way of working, quickly finding partners, or at times just giving even the technology to another partner to build with. Because at the end of the day, it would be really naive to think that one company can create one product that will serve all the needs of all the homes and houses and offices that are there. Just in the set context of India, you might need 10 companies doing what we're doing today. So we rather build, as I said, the foundation for the category to become mainstream and compete with other mainstream products that are synthetic and petrochemical derivative. I think that is where I would like Structure to be the leader in next 3 years. And
Amazing.
in that exercise, you'll make sales. I think that I've never been very worried about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens at the end of life of this product?
Again, depends where do you define end of life. So one way of defining that is, okay, it goes into a building, let's say becomes a piece of furniture or becomes the wall or the ceiling. So when that building has its end of life, 20 years, 50 years, and what happens to most buildings is that they get demolished. At that point, if there are three ways of looking at it. One is everything that is built with a panel like this can be dismantled in a much nicer way than brick or monolithic structures and can be recycled to a different use case, which means that same furniture panel can be recycled to create a new furniture, like is what we're thinking today to do with old wood, right? Refurbish these logs that have gone into 100 or 200-year-old homes and now convert them into a new piece of furniture. That's one way of looking at it. Second is which is something that would need some capital and a little bit more maturity, is to how can we build that reverse supply chain of those panels coming back to our or those other factories, and then at the industrial level be disintegrated and biodegraded. Because if 95-96% of it is straw and only 3-4% is binder, which also soon hopefully will become a bio-based binder, you can actually break the bond between the binder and the straw, and then the straw can just be biodegraded into a fertilizer at the end of the day and go back into the soil where it has grown from. Or you can think of a more intense way of addressing it, which is, you do pyrolysis and you turn that biomass into oil and fuel. So it again, it's like, and each of these can be done based on who is again the stakeholder you're engaging with. Maybe some buyers of these products would want to engage with you and contributing of it to actually go to pyrolysis, versus some customers would want to just support you in the back end reverse supply chain, so that you as a producer could take the responsibility and turn. But either of the thing, what we are sure of is that neither in either of these situations, and in the worst case scenario where nothing happens to it, unfortunately, and it is just sitting there as a debris, which is what happens with 80% of construction when it gets demolished, is that it will not negatively impact the air. There will be nothing negatively emitted out of the panel that will impact the air quality of the outdoor environment or the indoor environment where it is sitting, and neither will it negatively impact the soil of the land. So at least you can be sure of that. But yes, how you can further give it a new life or turn it into another product is something, as I said, there is very real theoretical ways that is already done. We are at an early stage of testing it out as well. So yes, it will only have a better end of life or not have a life, in which case it will just not exist negatively on the planet.
Right. Awesome. As a final question, I would like to ask you, what are some tips, suggestions that you would give to a budding eco entrepreneur in India?
I think when I do believe that, if you're an eco entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur who's doing something that either has a social or environmental impact, or better both, part of what you're trying to build, I think building with these kind of fundamental principles where the foundation is what you're really concerned about, being very clear about how this will scale sustainably is not an if, but I think is actually, with more successful case studies will be proven is actually the right way to build, to grow, at least in this category, at least in this ecosystem. So I think in that case, my tip to a new entrepreneur would be to actually spend time and be willing to believe that it will take time. I think a lot of times when we try to build soon and we fail, or we try to build because we are getting influenced with what is happening around us in terms of, oh, if we build soon we can raise, or if we build too soon we'll have a business that a lot of other people would be looking at, you become impatient. So I think when you actually day one just actually talk to yourself and tell yourself that what you're building is going to take time, it takes away a lot of anxiety and the desperation out of you to build soon. And then when you're not building for that time crunch, you're by default going to build for long. Whether you run it for long or not, that's secondary. But I think the business will be built to be, be there for a long period of time, no matter what, who runs it, gets acquired, not acquired. Or don't build it to raise, like, those are my first principles. I mean, I'm sure we can have very different opinions on it. Don't build to exit, don't build to raise. Those things will happen as byproduct, but as an eco entrepreneur, because you're building something which has real community at the core of it, because it has environment at core of it. If you build it very strongly with the right fundamentals, I think the sales, the exit, the capital will come into place. Because I think today, any investor, anybody would like to invest in a company that can do well as a business, but can also do well for the planet. I think that goes without saying. We're not anymore in that situation where that's an if situation. Is just that there are not a lot of successful case studies that are doing both together. So I think we're actually in a better position that if we can build for both, which can take some time, but if you do that, you'll actually have more interest in future in terms of people who would want to support you and act as catalysts.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shriti. Is there anything you would like to include in this conversation finally?
No, I'm just happy to do this. I think the one last thing that I would want to add is something that, is the philosophy of how we build structure, which is part of all our presentation, whether investor, client, from day one, which is a quote which says waste is only a waste if you waste it, which is the mindset that we really want to build with the business that we're building, that, change that as a behavior, or nudge people to just look at their consumption differently, that really, nothing needs to be wasted. And what is already being wasted is just because we are lacking the intent or the mindset or the energy to reimagine it. But honestly, nothing needs to be wasted really out there. Everything can be rebuilt into a new life, whether it is textile, whether it is paper, whether it is packaging, our buildings, everything, can reimagine, have a longer life or a new life. It doesn't need to be dumped away.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and spending this time talking about how you built everything. I think this was a very valuable conversation for me and probably also for the listeners and viewers of this. So thank you again
Thank
and
you.
good
Thank you.
luck with everything, with
Thank
structure,
you.
with turning waste into wealth and taking this category to the global front.
Thank you. Thanks.